and welcome to another episode of Yarn to Table. My name is Celeste, and this is a podcast about my knitting life. If this is your first time watching, I want to thank you so much for deciding to spend a little bit of your time with me. Yep, that's my kitty cat making noises. And if you are a returning viewer, I want to say thank you so much as well. Thank you for subscribing, sharing, recommending this podcast, participating in all of our discussions, our knit-alongs, leaving your comments. It means so much to me, and I really appreciate you continuing to come back. If you have not yet subscribed and you do get a kick out of this podcast, you can hit the button down below so that it'll pop up in your feed every single Monday. And if you also, if you do enjoy this podcast, I always appreciate it as well if you just hit the little thumbs up tab down there because it helps other people find me. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, let's jump in. I want to remind you of all of the CALs that we have going on right now. Still one more week to get your finished objects in for the new socks CAL. We have the Unravel Along, the Great Unravel 2017, which I am co-hosting with Caitlin of Wool Jewel and Taylor of Wool Needles Hands. And that we actually had our cast on day yesterday, so very, very exciting. That will be running through June 17th. So plenty of time if you haven't cast on yet, even if you haven't found a sweater yet to unravel. This is our knit along that's all about unraveling an old sweater to make something new. We cast on officially yesterday for Earth Day because it's sort of a recycling themed, kind of a little bit more earth friendly, conscious of your fiber footprint, that kind of thing. But of course, if you didn't cast on yesterday, there's still plenty of time, and there are more details about that in the show notes, in the Ravelry group on the page, the chatter thread, in my past episode, and plenty of information on Taylor and Caitlin's sites as well. And don't hesitate to ask me if you have any questions. You can ask me directly. And then the third knit along is kicking off in about a week on May 1st, and that is the Summer Garments CAL that I am co-hosting with Anna of Dunkelgroen. And we are very, very excited about that as well. So basically just any summer garment. There's more details on what that means in the chatter thread in the Ravelry group as well, and in the show notes. All of the show notes are posted in their own threads on the Ravelry group, which is of course Yarn to Table. There's a link for it in the doobly-doo. You can also find it by searching. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as @CelesteFull if you want to follow along with the stuff that I'm working on. There are detailed project pages for every single project that you see on this podcast, with all the information about any changes to the patterns that I make and the yarn and anything like that. But of course, you can also ask questions directly if you have any questions on them as well. So let's get into finished objects, shall we? The first finished object that I have for you is my tulip socks. And I don't have them to show you on blockers because the fun detail is on the back of them, so I really kind of wanted to show them to you like this. There they are, and then the fronts are just vanilla. And I think these are picking up kind of a brighter pink on camera. They're much more of a dusky rose, I would say. It's pretty similar to that though. These are a pattern by Marina Ori, and they were published in, I want to say Let's Knit. They were published in a magazine, so the pattern is not directly on Ravelry. I found it by kind of searching through the archives of the Let's Knit website, and I found the PDF that way, and it was a free PDF. It just isn't directly on Ravelry. So if you guys have trouble finding it and you want it, as I said last time, I'd be happy to email it to you. I've already gotten a request for that and emailed it to someone else. So because it's free and publicly available, it's just kind of difficult to find. I don't mind just emailing you the PDF directly. So let's see, what else is there to say about these? Okay, I modified them a lot. So the actual pattern is for a toe-up sock, and I did cuff down. As I mentioned last week, I had to adjust the pattern. I had a little bit, some weird little hiccups with that. It turned out I just really needed to turn it upside down, follow it like a regular chart. But I want to add the caveat, because I didn't mention it last week, that that sort of thing only works with a simple chart like this, where you're not changing your stitch count as you go from row to row. If it's more complicated lace, it's not going to be that simple. So just keep that in mind when you're adapting lace patterns to go the other direction, or any kind of pattern, I guess. Any kind of, I never know what to say when what I'm trying to say is texture and I say pattern, but it's like the whole thing is a pattern. Anyway, so I did cuff down, so I did the pattern, the chart backwards. I added a different heel. I did the twisted ribbed heel just from the Renesmee socks that were the last pair of socks I finished. The heel in the pattern for these is a ribbed heel. It's just that it's a toe-up heel, so it was just easier for me to copy that from a different pattern. And then I just did my Kitchener stitch toe. And the fun thing about these as well is that I did knit them concurrently, and I did find that to be pretty helpful in terms of just not really wasting any of my time kind of like counting and making sure that I was picking up the same number of stitches in the heel flap, or doing the same exact heel turn, or Kitchenering with the same exact number of stitches. Like, I just knew as I went that they were going to be pretty identical, and I did it pretty, like when I say concurrently, I did cuff, cuff, heel flap, heel turn, gusset, gusset, foot, foot, toe, toe, Kitchener, Kitchener. Like, I literally went back and forth that much. And I kind of liked it. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna always do that. There was something I will say. I knit these in a week, exactly, and I feel like that's probably the fastest I've ever knit socks before. They weren't even the only thing I was knitting on this week. They are kind of complicated sock. I had trouble with them. I had to rip back almost the entire chart once. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. I have allergies or something. Excuse me. So I had some trouble with them and everything, and they still worked out pretty quickly. I mean, I do think part of that was I was really motivated to finish them. But I do feel like the knitting concurrently kind of saved me some time, and it kind of helped me, I don't know, it made me feel productive as I was knitting them. There's just something about it. The other thing to mention about these is that I knit them in cotton, which I would not recommend. My idea was like, it's springtime, they're kind of shorter, they're lacy, they're springy, like, why not do cotton? That seems fun. I used Knit Picks Comfy Fingering, and I don't know directly if it's like not recommended that you use cotton for socks. I never really see people use cotton, but I would say that I do not feel that it is as stretchy and squishy as wool, which I just don't think lends itself to a sock quite as well as wool. My gauge was pretty much the same in terms of stitch count, but for my row count, I had to do fewer rows in the foot than I do when I use wool, just by about 5 rows. I did 5 rows fewer, and I think I could have gotten away with more like 10, actually. I kind of was almost there by the time I realized, like, oh, my gauge in terms of rows is a little off because of this yarn. I'm assuming it's because of the yarn. The other thing is this split really easily. That's not to do with the fiber content necessarily. I think it's just this yarn. It's like a 4-ply, but it's just kind of splitty. And again, I feel like it's that, you know, those cotton fibers are like, they're not like bunching and clinging onto each other the way that wool does. And it just, I think that does kind of make it a little splittier. But again, I could be wrong. I'm not like a total fiber expert necessarily. But anyway, so I have yet to find out if these stretch out. Oh, there's my kitty cat. I've yet to find out if these are going to stretch out worse than wool. I kind of suspect they might, but you know, we'll find out. And I do think they're like about the cutest thing ever. So definitely pleased with this project. Honey, you want to get in my lap? You can't just keep interrupting every single time that I record a podcast. Okay, get in my lap. All right. I have another FO for you, which is also very exciting and very cute. My little dragon friend. Oh my goodness. Here he is from the side, his little tail, little wings. And from the front, he's got his little feet down here. His little arms are joined up together, so they just kind of rest on his tummy. And then you can see his cute little ears, safety eyes, his little snout, and his neck bobs all around. I don't like that it kind of flips up all the way, but I do like the way that it kind of lets him have little expressions and stuff. I knit this for my mother. I'm going to give him to her for Mother's Day, which is in a few weeks. And I just think he's so cute, and I think she's going to really love him. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the construction. The yarn is something I had in my stash that's discontinued. I can't even remember what it's called. It is called Munch Yarns Bergamo. Hi. Sorry, Augie's trying to get in on this action again. It's a ribbon yarn, and it's, I think, 100% wool, but it's a discontinued yarn. I knit it at a very tight gauge, so it's kind of a bulky, and I knit this on US 4. I did the whole thing magic loop, but when I got to, Augie, scooch. When I got to picking up to knit the tail, it's like this big triangle, right? And to knit a huge triangle, you can't really do that magic loop because it's like attached to the body, so it like, you know, if that makes sense. Augie, honestly. So I had to bring in the double pointeds for that, and I didn't have double pointeds in a 4. So I knit the tail on size 3, and I just tried to keep my gauge really loose. And it was a little bit tight and difficult to manage, but sorry, he's really being a pain. There you go, just lie down, honey. It was a little bit tight and difficult to kind of manage, but I think it worked out fine. I sized way down for the yarn because I wanted a very dense gauge, really tight, absolutely no polyfill visible. And as you can see, even if you kind of stretch it a little, you have to really stretch it to see the white polyfill that's in there. And that is what I like when I make a stuffy. These safety eyes I just had in my stash from making stuffies last year. I bought like a little pack of them on Amazon. They are much larger than the pattern called for, but I kind of think they're cute that way. The pattern also called for embroidery floss to add some nostrils and a mouth, but I kind of like him more simple with just the eyes. Obviously he does have these little eyelids that I stitched on with the yarn, and I just think he's really cute. The other thing that makes mine look a little different is his toes. His front feet are like closer together than on the pattern. That's just because I sort of misread the directions on the placement of the toes. But I kind of think it makes him look adorable because he's like so wide, and then he has these little feet so close together. Yeah, he's got these great spines down the back. I love the shape of his wings and of his little ears. I just think the design is so cute. This is by Susan B. Anderson. She is a stuffy genius. Basically every pattern that she does, including him, is done in the round and all in one piece. So literally every single detail you pick up and knit. Like he is in the round, his whole body all the way up through his neck to his head and to his snout, all one piece, and then you just pick up for the ears and the wings and the arms and the feet and the tail. Even these spines are done in the round, which if you can imagine trying to knit those and sew them on separately, I mean, that would be a nightmare. So I think so I really appreciate the sort of ingenious construction that she brings to all of her patterns. I absolutely recommend her if you're interested in doing a stuffy for the first time and you're like not into a lot of seaming and piecing. Gotta go Susan B. Anderson. Plus, just freaking adorable also. So you got that going for it. Oh, so cute. I'm trying to think if there was something else I wanted to say about him. Oh, one thing that was a little difficult about this pattern is that she sort of guides you as to where you're picking up for all these little pieces, but you don't exactly know. So for like the arms, she kind of helps you measure where you're going to be picking up based on where these pearl bump bridges are for his sort of scaly belly. And that's fine, like that was pretty easy. The ears, you don't really get any direction, you just kind of have to eyeball it. I used a progress keeper to kind of mark the places before I started picking up and knitting. That way I felt like it was the same place on both sides. Placing the wings wasn't very difficult because she had you kind of compare it to where these spines are, but then picking up the tail was definitely the most difficult part of the pattern. I had to put my 3 needles in a triangle, like picking up. I had to do that like about 4 or 5 times before I got it exactly right. And, you know, that's just a matter of the fact that you have this big canvas and you're just trying to get the placing exactly right and the right number of stitches and spread out the right distance and everything. And I have done stuffies before where the placement of things like the eyes and maybe in some cases even the limbs was marked by pearl bumps in the pattern. So as you're constructing the body, you just add like a pearl bump when it tells you to, and then you find that pearl bump later and that's exactly where you want to be placing your eyes or something. And I found that to be really, really helpful. So I think something like that, at least just for the tail, might have helped a little. But even so, I think just the fact that you had to pick up so many stitches for the tail, I think it's just going to be a little bit fiddly. But not a big deal, and I really enjoyed knitting this guy. I did him in 2 sittings, one I think a couple weeks ago, and then another one today. So not difficult, lots of fun, and very, very cute. All right, let's move on to whips. So I have 2 whips to show you that I have already been working on, so it's not super exciting, but I'm about to start my Great Unravel project, so I have info for that for you. It's going to be an exciting kind of on the horizon segment. I have yarn to show you. So let's just check in with the whips, shall we? First one in my Gilmore Girls patchwork bag is my Easter egg socks. This is Knit Picks Fleecy Soft Serve. You've been seeing me make slow progress on these, just kind of whenever, wherever. And this week I did the fish lips kiss heel. So ready to do the foot. The contrasting mint is mint in Knit Pick Stroll. So not much to talk about there, but just a little check-in. And then the other one is, of course, my Floam. And my Floam, I have made modest progress on this week. Obviously, it wasn't really my big focus this week. However, you can't really, I mean, you're not really even going to notice that there's been much progress made because I'm still in the black hole. So here I am. Here it is. Gosh, so much yarn. There it is. And essentially I am quite close to the part where I'm going to add the pockets. So that's going to be very fun. And then I should be done with the body pretty soon after that and picking up for the sleeves. And of course, since it's not all in one piece, that's all I have to do. So that is very exciting. Okay, so if you follow me on Instagram, you're probably like, why doesn't she have her Great Unravel as a work in progress? She said she was casting on yesterday. I fully intended to, especially with it being Earth Day. I was like really excited and I got all of my yarn totally ready. And as I mentioned on Instagram, I was thinking about doing a bag. I was going to do this bag called the folded tote bag, which would be like simple and fun, and I thought it would work really well with the ribbon shape of my yarn because it's actually designed for ribbon shaped yarn. But as I was looking at all my unraveled goodness, which you can see here, if you don't remember or haven't seen, my yarn came from a sweater that was painted, sort of printed on after being knit, which gives my yarn this awesome sort of sock blank effect where it's kind of like speckled in interesting places. So when I kind of noticed how much yarn I had, I was like, it would be a shame to just knit something small like this bag and then have a bunch of yarn left over, and like, am I ever going to use that for anything? And it's kind of defeating the purpose, which is about like using up that yarn, like putting it towards something good. And I also kind of got to thinking about the idea of doing a summer garment with this because it is a cotton poly blend, nice and light, that ribbon shape. And I think it would be really perfect for a summer garment. And I got thinking about that because Anna, who I'm co-hosting the Summer Garment Cow with from the Dunkelgrün podcast, which you should definitely be watching if you're not. I can't imagine why you wouldn't be. She mentioned that she was going to double dip and into Great Unravel and Summer Garment. So I started looking for something, and I found the Ayla tank, which is by Isabel Kramer, and it is for the Quince & Co. ebook Sparrow 2016. So it's a collection of 4 tops that were knit with their Sparrow yarn, which is their fingering linen. And they're all on my favorites list already, all 4 of them. In fact, one of them is the Amalia, which is the, excuse me, gosh, I really got a problem in my throat today. So one of the other patterns in that collection is the Amalia, which is the little peplum that I've already bought yarn for and I'm planning on making. In fact, I was going to make it really soon. So I thought that I would make the Ayla, and I just went ahead and bought the whole collection because I love all 4 of them, and I'm definitely going to make 2 of them like right away. So it's this nice little tank. It's very simple. It's knit from the top down seamlessly, and then there is a very simple like lace border on the bottom. And I wanted something that would be knit seamlessly from the top down because if you have noticed, some of my yarn is more speckly than others. I noticed when I was looking at it that it would probably be that way because the sleeves kind of had more of the print on them and the button bands had more of the print on them, whereas the front pieces and the back piece kind of had more white space. So there's definitely some variety here. And you could just sort of be like, who cares, and let it sort of be random where there's more speckling. I think that would be a fine way to go. That's what I was going to do with the bag. You could alternate skeins if you wanted it more consistent, or you could do what I'm planning to do and what I hope is going to work well and kind of use up all your heavily speckled ones at the top and then blend down into your lighter speckled ones to kind of create a bit of an ombre effect. So that is my plan. I think it's going to be really, really fun. And the reason that I have not cast on yet is that I got all set to cast on last night, and I noticed that I needed size 4 needles. Now I have an interchangeable set, and I only have a few cables. I only have like 1 cable of like 3 or 4 different lengths. So, you know, my socks are like their own thing that I have going on their fixed needles, but for my other projects, I'm a little limited, which doesn't bother me because, for one thing, I kind of like the discipline that it imposes on like not having too many whips going, which I know is something that Andy of 10,000 Stitches has talked about before, which I totally relate to, is like, I shouldn't own too many needles because I shouldn't have that many projects going all at once. So I kind of live by that. So my size 4 needles, along with the cable that I needed, were in use on this cute little fellow. And obviously I could just take them out and put him on scrap yarn, which is in fact what I did last night to knit myself a gauge swatch and make sure that those were the needles I wanted to be using, the needle size. I knew I was going to need that cable no matter what. So I did that, but I started thinking, if I go ahead and I start this project, then when I want to complete him, and he's kind of on a bit more of a time schedule, I'm going to have to put all of these stitches on my tank onto holders so that I can bring the needles back to him, and then I'm only going to be able to knit on him, and it's like, I'm not about that. It just gets too complicated. So I thought I should just finish him up, and then the tank can have the needles. So even though I wanted to cast on last night, I just did my little gauge swatch, and then I went back to him like a good girl, and I finished him up today. Actually didn't knit on him at all last night, I don't think. I just made that plan. So I can't tell you how excited I am to cast on for this. Probably going to do it right after this podcast. I just finished the dragon just before the podcast. So cannot wait to see how it goes. I'm very excited. I think that this yarn is about sport weight based on my gauge. I kind of had an ill-fated plan to guess the weight of it based on sort of like measuring length and then weighing it, but I mean, my scale does grams and everything, but it's not accurate enough that, like, I would have had to have measured a lot of yards to get an accurate measure against weight, if that makes sense. So it's easier for me to just sort of guess that it looked like sport weight and then sort of do my gauge swatch and be like, yeah, this will work. So it's kind of like fingering weight, sport weight, somewhere in there. I think it's going to be really perfect for the tank, so I am very excited. I'm also excited about some other things that I have on the horizon that I want to talk to you about. So the first one is this, which I have caked up. Now, I don't think you've ever seen this yarn. I bought it shortly before I started the podcast. And it is cat sandwich fibers. In the colorway, it's Bananas, B-A-N-A-N-A-S. Just gorgeous. I wish you could have seen it in the skein as well, because it was really beautiful in the skein. But gosh, I absolutely love this so much. I just want to knit with it. It makes me happy, and I'm going to knit my next pair of patterned socks with it, which is going to be a pair of monkey socks. I actually had this for the monkey socks on my schedule for July. But as I talked about last week with my sort of burnout and my desire to sort of take myself off that schedule, I decided to throw that schedule out the window, and from now on just sort of do socks as they come up, what I'm feeling in the moment, except for a few occasions where there are some things that I kind of have planned ahead, like something for Halloween, but you know, that I won't necessarily hold myself to if I'm not feeling it later. And these were just what I felt like next. I just love this yarn. I've been digging cat sandwich fibers lately. I've been actually wanting more of her yarn, which is ludicrous because I hadn't knit with the yarn that I already had. And I just was like, I'm doing it. So that's gonna be up next. It is on her Stellina base, which is called Glitzy, and I don't know if you can tell, but it is a really high quality Stellina. I hate when there's a Stellina, which I won't name names, but I've had Stellinas before where the bits of Stellina were just sort of poking out everywhere. They didn't feel as tight to the yarn. And I will say that the Glitzy base from Cat Sandwich Fibers, I haven't even knit with it yet, but I can already tell that it is like a high quality Stellina. It is tightly wound into the yarn itself. It's not flying off and poking in all directions. And that makes it look just so much nicer. So very, very excited about this. And I have also caked up my hedgehog fibers for my Marley shawl, which you will have seen in the skein back when I bought them a few weeks ago. I've just stuck these in this bag for now because I'm telling you, I'm hurting for project bags right now. I'm like, that's the other reason that I felt like I almost felt like I had to finish the dragon before I could start the tank, is like I needed his project bag. Like I really need to make myself some project bags. It's an issue. So you will have seen these in the skein if you've been watching for weeks, but here they are caked up. So flipping gorgeous. I honestly can't even handle it. This one is Bramble, and I swear it is one of the most beautiful yarns I've ever seen in my entire life. And this is, I want to say it's just called Coral. That's bad, I can't remember. Anyway, it's on Ravelry. You can look at my stash or in my queue, or if I've already started the project on my project page, and it'll tell you. And these are on their skinny singles base. I love single ply. I think it is so gorgeous. So this is going to be a Marley. Very, very excited to knit this. As you know, I love me some brioche. So I was actually having kind of a rough time earlier this week, and I caked that up. I knew that I wasn't going to be starting the Marley that day. It just wasn't in the cards. For one thing, I was kind of too exhausted to use the brain power to like start a new project. And I knew I really should sort of finish other things and stuff. But I just wanted to do something that made me feel good, like a treat for myself. And so I caked that up and told myself, like, you're going to be doing this in a minute. This is on the horizon for you. And I think that was also the same day that I caked this up and decided, yeah, I caked them up at the same time. So that was like a nice little, I know you guys can probably relate because you're knitters, but like how crazy are we as people that it's like, I was having a bad day, so I came home and I spent an hour and a half caking up yarn to make myself feel better. Like, how mentally ill can you be? Okay, and then the next on the horizon thing that I want to mention, this is not right on the horizon. This is something that I have planned for once the weather gets cold. But I was browsing, and so I follow Two of Wands on Instagram, which is a really beautiful knitting account. And I looked at her website and some of her designs I was going through, and she does a lot of bulky weight stuff. She does a lot of crochet as well as knit. And I found this really interesting scarf. So the designer's name is Alexandra Tavel, and it's called the Armor Scarf. I actually wouldn't call it a scarf. I would call it a cowl. It is a big, chunky cowl with, it's like tall enough. It doesn't have a curved hood to it. It's all one piece, but it's tall enough that you can sort of pull it up as a hood. And then it has this piece in the back and in the front that goes all the way down your bodice, basically like, it almost is just like this whole huge, like a vest or something, except that it doesn't connect under your arms. And it's all done in super bulky wool, and it's got a bit of like a stripe thing going on with a few different colors. And I don't know, it's just bold and cool looking. And I have been kind of on the lookout for some pattern to use up some stash yarn that I have that is super bulky. I have a couple skeins of Twinkle's, what's it called? Soft Chunky, Twinkle Soft Chunky, which is another discontinued yarn, sorry. I have a couple skeins of it in gray, and I have one in like a blush pink, and then I have some like half skeins, like leftovers, in like a lavender and a blue. And I was thinking, definitely use the gray and the pink, maybe some of the lavender and blue, just like a little bit. and sub in some Knit Picks Tough Puff, which is essentially the same yarn, in black, so that I would have a lot of black, and then I could use up all of, it's so big that it would use all of that. So I would use like 2 skeins of black and 2 of gray and 1 of pink, and then maybe just like tiny little hints of the blue and the lavender in the stripes of the thing. I would use a bunch of my stash yarn. It would be a fun, quick knit. It would be fun to wear, fun to show off on the podcast. So I've definitely been thinking about that lately, added it to my queue, and I'm pretty excited. I have not knit with super bulky yarn in years, so I think that could be a lot of fun, just for a change of pace. I've done so much fingering yarn lately, fingering weight. I just feel like if I did a super bulky project, it would just fly off the needles and be like so much fun. Next up is stash enhancement. I have 1 skein of yarn to show you and some fabric. So very exciting. So the skein is, if you are a member of the Homespun House local yarn club and you haven't seen your skein yet, look away. And this is it. Very interesting because it's a semi-solid and the other 2 were not, so I think that's pretty exciting. And I really like the stitch marker that comes with it. Actually, I think it'll go really well with another stitch marker that I have as like a cute little set. And this color is called Harvest and Care. So I think this could be really great for a brioche. I don't even know yet. I might use it in something with the other skein from the Yarn Club. As you know, I already used up the first one in my meandering shawl. But I think the second one and that one could maybe do a cute brioche project together. I'm not sure, but I love that color. So you can look back if you looked away. And now I want to talk about sewing and the fabric that I got. The most exciting thing for stash enhancement, which I'm not going to show you, but I got a new sewing machine, which I talked to you guys about how I needed that in Chitchat last week. And I'm very excited. I have not had a chance to use it yet, but as soon as I have a little bit of free time, I'm going to knit my, sew up my other Gilmore Girls patchwork project bag, and I really need to make some project bags for myself, although I don't really have fabric, so I probably should get on that. But yeah, very excited. And I went ahead and ordered myself 3 Tilly and the Buttons patterns and some fabric for them because I am very, very excited to kind of get back into sewing myself some clothes. I haven't done this in a long time, and as I mentioned before, I've always been kind of an imprecise sewist, such that my clothes that I make for myself, like, they look more handmade than I want them to. And I think part of that is I would want to do more advanced patterns and less beginner patterns, so they're more complicated. But lately I feel like I've realized that a big part of that is just that I was working on these antique machines that were so temperamental and difficult to use that, you know, they wouldn't let you be precise. Because when I look at the other things that I do, I'm a precise person. I'm not a sloppy person. And these machines that I had worked on all my life were like from the 70s and really difficult. So I'm hoping that when I have a machine that is sort of a little bit more user-friendly and I'm working with some really simple beginner Tilly and the Buttons patterns, that I'm going to be able to make myself some things that I'm actually proud to wear. And that gets me really, really excited. So I don't have the patterns yet. So I'm going to just like flash up pictures of them when I show you the fabric and what I'm going to be making. So I can't start on these until the patterns come. I actually ordered the fabric patterns because I do not have any interest in printing out and cutting out some patterns. No, thank you. So the first thing is this striped, this is actually the wrong side of it. The right side is there. There you go. Just a basic off-white and black stripe. This is a Ponderoma, and it's a poly rayon spandex blend. Spandex for stretch, polyester, and rayon. If you don't know, I thought for a long time that rayon was basically just a synthetic like polyester, but actually rayon is what they call a semi-synthetic, I think. So it's made from wood pulp. So it's actually pretty sustainable and pretty soft and breathable, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, so this is going to be for a cocoa dress. I think I'm going to just omit the pockets entirely. They're just a little much for me. And I'm going to omit the roll collar on the dress version. But don't worry, because y'all know that I love a rolled collar, okay? Like, that's been established. Like a tunnel, like a, I never know what to call them, like a, I mean, you see the image here. I'm putting it up on the screen. You know, like a Jackie O collar. So I will be doing two versions of the top with the collar. The first one is going to be basically what you see, although I'm going to omit the sort of cuffs on the sleeves because I think they're a little like old lady-ish or something. I don't know. So I'm going to be doing that in this lovely interlock knit heather gray, which is a poly cotton blend, but it feels like 100% cotton. It's so super soft. And then I'm going to do another version of it, but I'm going to abbreviate the sleeves to make them short, but still have the top. And I'm going to do that in this black. This is just some Pont double knit. And this actually is not soft. This is 100% polyester, which I honestly would not have ordered if I had realized. I don't know how I think I got distracted. I was like looking at a few different options and I was like, oh, that one's cheaper. And I don't know. It just, you know how that stuff can happen. Hi, Augie. He was lying here and now he's getting up. You know how that stuff can happen. So, I mean, because it's going to be short sleeves, I think it'll be hopefully breathable enough that I won't absolutely hate wearing it. And if I do, it'll just be like a practice round. I'm going to make this one first. And if I really, really hate it, I will just buy some better fabric and make it again. And then I also ordered the marigold jumpsuit, which I'm going to make using Augie. He's so disruptive. I'm going to make that using this very, very beautiful. This is called Kaufman Essex Yarn Dyed Linen Blend in black. And as you can kind of see from the selvage, this gorgeous sort of grayish is done by actually having black threads running one way and white threads with running the other. Oh yeah, you can kind of tell there, see? Which I think is really, really beautiful. And this is actually a linen cotton blend. So it's kind of like a light chambray, but it's got that linen in there. Gonna make it extra breathable, probably extra wrinkly, but whatever. I feel like when you wear linen, it's sort of just like you're supposed to be rumpled and wrinkly and like, you know, just it's got that like glamorous disheveled quality to it. I like a wrinkled linen. I don't know. What can I say? Sorry if the light's getting really bad in here. I'm starting to lose it, and I need to start recording these earlier, but I really wanted to finish my dragon, so. Okay, and the final fabric that I got is for the Bettine dress, and it is 100% cotton. It is this really lovely, it's called Art Gallery, I think is the name of the brand, and it's Nightfall Voile Lunation Dark. It comes in a couple colors, I think like a mustardy yellow. This is like a nice burgundy. I think it's coming off kind of purple on camera. It's more of a burgundy. Very soft, very light and flowy. going to be gorgeous. I'm going to make the version with the front pocket, but I'm not going to do the tabs on the sleeves. And I've just gotten so excited about all these different versions of the bateen that I can do as well if I like it. Like, there's instructions on her blog for how to convert it to jersey, which I think would be like basically the most comfortable dress in the world. I also really like the idea of just making some bateen blouses, and I also really like the idea of making bateen separates and do like a little matching skirt and top. Anyway, I've just been dreaming a lot about that. But first, I got to make the stuff that I have. So as soon as I get those patterns, I will be ripping out this fabric and going to town. Can't wait for it. Now that I've shown you the fabric, I'm going to throw it in the washer as well, just so that the instant I get the patterns, I can like start. So excited. So I wanted to do a designer spotlight today, but it looks like we don't have a ton of time. So I'm going to go ahead and push that until next week, and let's just get into Chit Chat. If you are not sticking around for Chit Chat, thank you so much for joining for the knitting section of the podcast, and I hope you'll subscribe and come back and spend more time with me. And if you are sticking around for Chit Chat, sit back and take out your knitting if you haven't yet. I'm going to be taking out mine, and let's catch up a little bit. So let's see. Yesterday was Earth Day, and that meant Cast On for the Great Unravel, but it also meant in a lot of places the March for Science, which I did not end up taking part in. My husband was working, and it was going to be a really tight fit to get him to the march and to work, and so I kind of just wanted to spend as much time with him this weekend as I could, which I've talked about before, how I, have to try to prioritize spending time with him because we don't work the same schedule right now, which has been pretty difficult. So we decided instead to sleep in because we decided to go out the night before and see a late night showing of a movie, which I will talk about in a minute. But I just want to say that to everybody that was out there, like letting your voices be heard and supporting science and supporting the health of our planet, God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time and the energy and participating. My family was there. My niece and nephew, who are 3 and 5, made their own signs, and everybody wore lab coats, and I was pretty proud of them for getting out there and getting the kids to participate and teaching them about why it was so important to stand up for the planet. And so just anyone who did that and anyone who lets their voice be heard and stands up for science in any way in your daily life, I appreciate it, and I know the rest of us do too. It's a hard time right now, and it's really comforting to see people stand up for what we believe is right. So without further ado, I'll move on, but I just thought it was really important to mention that because that has definitely been on my mind. So Friday night, Ryan and I, as I said, we went and saw a late night movie, and that movie was Reservoir Dogs, which is a Quentin Tarantino movie. It's the first movie that he wrote and directed, and this year is the 25th anniversary of its release. So one of our local theaters, it's called the Bruin View. They're one of those theaters where they do like table service, and they have a big bar and like a full food menu and everything. They were doing a late night showing of it. They're actually doing a whole Tarantino series to celebrate. And Pulp Fiction is definitely my favorite Tarantino, but Reservoir Dogs is like probably my My second favorite. I kind of feel like it's the most perfect Tarantino movie. Very special to me. All of his work is. And I actually, last year, my friend and I adapted and we sort of wrote, it was like an all-women cast version of Reservoir Dogs, but it was more like a meta sort of play inside a play, because the play was about a group of women who decided to put on an all-female Reservoir Dogs. So there was sort of like a framing device for it that I wrote that involved like a lot of people nerding out about Tarantino, and we kind of like updated all of the pop culture references and added certain jokes and changed around certain things, which was this like incredible, I mean, as you can imagine, like putting on your own play is, it was a pretty incredible feat. It basically ate my life for like about 3 months. I had absolutely no time to do anything else except, work and all of my other responsibilities. And it was incredible. It was like all women doing this thing together. We were having rehearsals at like my house or at this gallery that one of our actors owned. We put it up at this really, really special venue that that my best friend and I, who did it together, had. We used to perform at back when we did another show together, a reoccurring show there, and it was like so special. And this was the first time that I had watched the movie since we did that. So it was like totally new and had so many positive memories from my own life associated with it, which was like a really neat new experience. And for my husband too, like he leaned over to me at one point and he was like, I can see you guys on the stage. This is like totally bringing me back to your play. Our play was called Reservoir Dames, by the way. So that was really cool. The other thing was, neither of us had ever seen it on the big screen. Now, I have no idea how many times I've seen this movie. If I were to guess, it's probably around like 20. Never seen it on the big screen. When it was released, I was 4, and my husband was like 11. So we couldn't have even seen it. Like, it was too adult for us, even when it came out. So to see it on the big screen was really cool because we found ourselves noticing like all these little details about the set and about like certain performances and like an actor who's in the background of a scene and things like that we just had never noticed before. And afterwards, when we were driving home, we were talking about it, and he was like, you know what? We noticed all of that stuff because it was on the big screen. And I was like, oh my God, that's totally why. How cool. Like, what a great privilege to get to see a movie that you love so much in the way that it has always been intended to be seen, while sipping on a lovely local beer with the man that you love and being reminded of this incredible, creative, artistic show that you put on with women last year that like is this amazing thing that you're never going to forget. I mean, it was just like, it was really great, you guys. Without getting too sappy, like it was really, really nice. So there was that. And then the last thing I want to mention to you just before I go, I don't know if you know, because a lot of people haven't been talking about it yet, but there's going to be a solar eclipse in August, and it's going to be the first time since 1979 that you can view the total solar eclipse from the continental United States, which is very exciting. And if you are in the continental United States, it's this whole beam that goes across, the path of it goes across the whole country. So you're actually, no matter where you are, you're probably not super, super far from the path in which you can see the total eclipse. Now, wherever you are in the continental United States, you're totally going to be able to see the partial eclipse, which will be cool. But the total eclipse is like apparently life-changing. And we are not far from that path. It runs through Nashville, which I think is where we're probably going to go. But we just found out about it, and we're talking about I already checked Airbnb and there are places available, thank God, although I imagine they're probably going to fill up pretty quick when people start sort of talking about this more. So we're going to bounce down there and see the total eclipse later this year, which is like really freaking exciting and definitely something, although I cannot recommend it from personal experience because I was not born back in 1979. If you haven't seen a total solar eclipse and you are anywhere near the path, I recommend it. Like, just, it's going to be on a Monday. Like, just take one day off work. If you have a regular 9 to 5, you can just take one day off work. Just like stay the night on Sunday night, you know, bounce down to wherever you're going to take it in. You can camp, you can do whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be an amazing thing. So I'm excited about that. And I think that's all I have to talk with you guys about this week. It's been pretty standard, busy, lots of work and stuff. So just some fun weekend things. And I hope that your week has gone well and that you have enjoyed your weekend. I know I'm coming to you on Monday or later in the week if you're watching me later in the week. So I hope you continue to have a great week and another great upcoming weekend. And like I said, I just want to thank you so much for being here with me again, continuing to come back, and all of your participation means so much to me. So happy knitting, and I will see you next week.